I am on.
Yeah, you gotta put your mask on when you talk.
I am. It's, yeah.
Oh, my.
It's too hard to understand.
It's muffled and.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. We're all here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is, what is it? It is 6 p.m. on Wednesday, December 1st, and I am now going to officially call to order this regular meeting of the Truckee-Donner Public Utility District. You're
Director Harris. Here. Vice President Laliotis.
Here.
Director Bender.
Here.
Director Aguera.
Here.
President Finn.
here.
Thank you.
Very good. And now, as you are willing and able, please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Director Bender, would you like to lead us this evening?
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And Brian, do we have any changes to the agenda this evening?
President Finn, there are no changes this evening.
Thank you very much. Item number 5 is public comment. So this is time that is set aside in every meeting for the public to address the board on any matter that is not on the agenda. So testimony related to agendized items should be addressed at the time that that item is considered. Do we have any public comment this evening on items that are not on the agenda? Please. I don't think you're on. There's the little.
Shauna,
Is that better? Yeah. Good evening. My name is Deirdre Henderson. I live in Truckee. I am co-lead of 100% Renewable Truckee. In November of 2017, the town of Truckee adopted a 100% renewable resolution. And while I think that the PUD is perhaps in spirit in supportive of the resolution, I'd like to see the PUD actually formally endorse the resolution. I think that would go a long way to uniting our town around goals that we really need to be meeting if we are going to have the ambition and the sense of urgency necessary to meet the challenge of climate change. So I urge you to please consider doing that as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
excuse me, Madam President. Shauna? Yes, sir. Is there a program, an agenda over there? And how, when did it make it this far? I got the packet.
Just the cover.
Thank you.
Very good. Oops. And item number 6, director updates. Do any directors, this is the time set aside for directors to comment on any item within the purview of the district that is also not on the agenda. Director Harris.
I typically have something, so thank you very much. First off, I wanted to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. I know it's a little after the fact, but I also hope you have a nice holiday season because I believe that this is our last board meeting before the Christmas season. So just wanted to wish everybody happy holidays to the staff as well as the board members and everybody who's here. So there's that. And then on November 18th, Tony, Bryan, and I actually met with about 10 people at the Lift House Coffee for a coffee talk. This was set up by David Diamond, who is the vice president on the airport board. I wanted to thank David for doing that. And I won't go into specifics about it because I know that Bryan is probably going to be talking about it, but the topic was broadband. And it was a very interesting topic. It was good to get out and speak with the community, and I just appreciate the opportunity to do that.
Thank you, Director Harris. Do we have other director updates this evening?
Is that working? All right, good. No, I just want to echo what Kim said. It was a very informative meeting. I was glad to see the community coming out and discussing their issues with broadband and their concerns with the local internet situation in our town. So I did appreciate their time. And I know Brian, as Kim said, it's going to give us a good update on the committee progress so far to date. And also thanks to David Diamond from the Airport Board for organizing these coffee talks. They're very valuable, I think, to the community. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Laliotis. Do we have any other director updates this evening? Director Bender, Director Aguirre? You good?
I'm good.
Very good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I also have a quick director update. Happy holidays, echo that. I was pulling up some old files. I was doing some writing for the Follies, and I accidentally clicked on a director statement that I had made 2 years ago in 2019. And I reread it, and I thought, I'm going to read that again. So it was to share my evolving vision for our community and the vital role we at the PUD will play. I think of Truckee as a little ship sailing on the Sea of the Sierra. As such, we need to be self-sufficient and sustainable to as great an extent as possible, resilient. So imagine this. Our power purchase agreements are well diversified and include wind, small hydro, solar, geothermal, and shares in large-scale storage projects such as ACES, the Advanced Clean Energy Storage Project, the world's largest renewable energy storage venture. They store solar energy as compressed air in Utah's massive salt caverns. We have strategically withdrawn from all fossil fuel generation, thus sparing our customers the financial exposure of stranded assets, as is happening with coal investments at this very moment. Truckee has invested in a community solar project, which generates clean, renewable energy 245 days a year, which is our average. It is paired with a large-scale storage project. At night and on storm days when the sun doesn't shine, we have access to small local biomass plant that provides the triple benefit of supplying renewable power on demand, creating local jobs, and reducing the fuel loads in our local forests, thus lessening the danger of catastrophic wildfire and improving the health of our forest ecosystem. We have facilitated the transition to electric vehicles for our school district, the town fleet, and our residential customers. We now have access to their batteries as a tool to help us at peak load times and during emergency outages. This can also be a tool to help mitigate the single point of failure, that is our 100% reliance on Nevada Energy to deliver our electricity. We will have restructured our rates to help our constituents change their habits to use energy when the sun is flying high. Our hot water heaters are all electric and are all grid integrated to help us shift our loads, shave our peaks, and integrate our renewables. All of these accomplishments and more can be driven by the PUD in partnership with the town, the sanitary district, the community foundation, the hospital and airport districts, our representatives in the state assembly and senate, both of whom are pro-biomass, Tesla and CAT. This is a vision, not a roadmap. It can only be accomplished insofar as it is in accordance with our mission statement. And these are just some of the pieces of the puzzle that are on the table. But the first step towards doing is dreaming. I want to thank staff for their knowledge and patience, and I would like to invite my fellow board members to share their visions of the future in hopes that we can identify areas of overlap and common goals that we can pursue together. In the immortal words of Wayne Gretzky, let's skate to where the puck is going, not to where it's been. Thank you. So I wrote that 2 years ago. Most of it is still my vision, for sure, and what I'm extremely happy about is a lot of these conversations are no longer me. There's a lot more depth. Our community is focusing on a lot of these problems. Our reliance on Nevada Energy has become front and center. Biomass discussions have left the purely theoretical and are being discussed and looked at closely by the town of Truckee and by North Star. So I think we're making progress. We're making progress, and I think it's good to review these sorts of statements and where are we now? Have we moved anywhere. Yes, we have. So let's keep doing that. And that's the end of my update for tonight, which rolls me into Brian.
Thank you, President Finn. I will keep it relatively brief. We have a public hearing this evening and a moderately packed agenda for this evening on a couple of presentations. So in terms of the GM's office updates, I wanted to give a little bit of a kind of a temperature of some of the procurement and economic challenges that are out there for public utilities such as the PD. We continue to see a general kind of condition of supply chain issues. We've had a couple of our projects where we are seeing extended delivery dates or extensions in providing particularly electric equipment or hardware. And so some of our projects, we're adjusting some of the timelines, and we're noticing that, again, some of the prices continue to be at an elevated position right now. We're hoping, as many economists believe, this is a transient condition that may normalize once the supply chain does, but we will keep the board abreast on some of the challenges we have with our capital projects going into 2022. For example, the Martis Woods pump station that we presented earlier this quarter, we have made the decision with the board's approval to reconsider the scope of that work to find a more immediate solution. And you may see that in some of our smaller projects for both water and power. On the kind of delinquent billing front, I've been reporting out to the board where we're at with that on essentially a quarterly basis. We have seen, as of December 1st, our most recent data kind of an analytics, that we've seen another rise in the 90-day and 30-day past due delinquencies. Our total arrearages at this point are just over $450,000. We are in the process, the application process for the regional, state, and federal relief. We will have more updates as that becomes available to us. We don't have an exact timeline on that, but the PUD is doing their due diligence and ensuring that we have access to our portion of that relief funding. We continue to work with customers, our ratepayers, for customized payment plans, billing modifications to help our folks get through this time, whether it's because of financial hardship or other reasons. We still have funds available for that COVID relief payment or funding that the board approved back in 2020. So that there are still funds available. We encourage our ratepayers to reach out to our customer service employees and staff and work on payment relief programs that are available to them. As you have mentioned, we have some good workshops and a committee update on the broadband initiative, but I wanted to kind of broaden that out a little bit. Sorry, the double use of words there, or the pun, but staff will be presenting to the board the other initiatives for consideration in establishing committees and setting a timeline for 2022 and 2023. Those are the 100% clean renewable energy, the local generation, and the undergrounding initiatives that were established in our master plan or our strategic plan. And so look for those in the first quarter of next year to revisit those and set some timelines and expectations for the next two-year budget cycle. With that, I will send it off to the rest of the agenda and call it good there.
Thank you, Brian. Item number 8, our committee update. We have an informational update on the Community Broadband Committee. So let's hear it. Who's presenting that to us this evening? Brian's back, okay. Changing hats.
So this item, microphone working? This item was intended to be presented by our Strategic Affairs and Public Information Officer, Stephen Poncelet, who is out of town attending a conference this week. He is the district's staff representative on that committee. I will sit in for him this evening. So our first formal Community Broadband Committee update. As you may recall, the board adopted our updated strategic plan on May 19th of earlier this year. This is the 2021 through 2024 strategic plan. The strategic plan development process included several workshops and community engagement activities stretching from September of 2020 and finally through approval in May of 2021. As I mentioned, there was significant community outreach, including a community survey and task force workshops for both the GM task force and the community Zoom workshops during the kind of the kickoff of the COVID environment there. Through the strategic planning process, the board identified 4 strategic initiatives. Those included community broadband, 100% clean renewable, undergrounding of electric, and local clean renewable generation. The board established a standing committee for community broadband initiative on June 16th, earlier this year. We received interest and applications from 10 qualified members who applied meeting certain criteria that we were really looking for. Those included items like local ratepayers, subject matter expertise, industry, and public partners. Regretfully, one member did have to resign due to scheduling and availability. The district held a kickoff meeting on September 23rd of earlier this year. Early on, the committee established a monthly meeting schedule for the third Thursday of each month from 3:30 to 5:30 p.m. And at the initial meetings, the committee voted to adopt the initial project scope and goals that were established during the GM task force earlier this last spring. So that scope included to identify the level of broadband internet services the community requires to meet local needs from the perspective of public safety, economic health, and community access. Based upon these needs, establish collaborative partnerships to facilitate the larger community benefit. And then the committee adopted the goals of identifying key stakeholders, potential partners, and local resources, develop a scope of work for a feasibility study, identify options for a potential organizational structure, and identify funding opportunities. Unfortunately, due to limited access and availability, the committee was unable to hold the second meeting that was scheduled for October due to the lack of being able to establish a quorum. The desire at that time from the committee was to establish Zoom availability or access for future agendized meetings. The November 18th meeting earlier this month, or last month now, the committee adopted a resolution 2021-01 resolving a local emergency and authorizing remote teleconference meetings. This committee, based on its assessment of the current COVID circumstances and their availability to attend, established the need for teleconferencing access so that they can continue that productivity and collaboration. The committee established task groups or assigned tasks to committee members for them to take on in the coming months here in the next quarter. These task groups included assessment of demand side needs. This is really getting deeper into what the community's needs are on the customer side. Another group was assigned the task of assessing and compiling the supply side conditions. These are available partnerships and local and regional resources. And then finally, the third task that was assigned was a group to pursue benchmarking and funding opportunities. This is really, all three of these tasks will be combined by the committee for a board recommendation on a potential feasibility study and how to pursue this initiative moving forward. The committee has established a timeline to present to the board at the March 2nd of next year. That's here in a few months. This committee will take the opportunity in open session here to present its recommendations based on its findings through these task work groups. I wanted to kind of take a little bit of a sidebar and follow up on the comments that both Vice President Laliotis and Director Harris mentioned, the coffee talk that all three of us attended at the Lift House Coffee Shop on the topic of community broadband. It was very consistent with the public participation and comments received, and the dialogue that was engaged there was very consistent with some of the discussions we had in the GM task force and the community engagement activities last spring. There is definitely a continuing frustration in the quality and reliability of internet and broadband services here in the greater Truckee area, our service territory. There has been quite a bit of discussion on the need for an elevated level of customer service and accessibility to customer service. And there was a lot of discussion on how the district can take an approach to leverage our resources that are already in place and that we continue to build out over the 10-year capital improvement plan. I'm referring to our fiber communication loops that we use for district utility facilities, both electric and water, and our data centers. And so leveraging those existing resources to somehow devise partnerships where there is a broader and more reliable access to internet services here in the community. One of the big challenges that this subcommittee faces and that the board and staff will face and the larger community will face is how do we approach this with a sense of equity and that all levels of our ratepayer base have access to this at an equal level. There's definitely some smaller subdivisions and groups out there that are prepared to invest in some of these services immediately, short term, with our partner Pluma Sierra, who currently works under kind of a federal structure, federal rural electric structure to provide telecoms. But how do we as a community and as a district provide this access across all levels of in all areas of our service territory? And so that is going to be one of the kind of the main focuses for this committee, their recommendations, and that scope of the feasibility study. Clearly, there's technologies out there, and we heard that through the coffee talk, and I would invite both Director Harris and Vice President Laliotis to further expand on that. But there's definitely the technologies out there. There's a desire and need for improvement. There's also a desire and need for, low cost and controlled cost. But it seems like the underlying expectation is to create a reliable resource here within the community. And so I'll kind of stop there. I offer any kind of public comment or the board's feedback on this item. But before we kind of transition here, wanted to let the board know that we do have a plan that we'll present. You've heard us mention in a few public sessions here that we will be utilizing a resource, monday.com. I have it up here on the board, and you'll see the board's strategic plan for 2021 through 2024. We're now in the 2022 and 23 budget cycle, but we'll begin to present, staff will begin to present with the committee schedules and timelines on the work we're doing with these initiatives. And so in the first quarter next year, we'll talk about the additional initiatives, but we'll present some of the milestones after this committee comes with its first recommendation to the board on how we move forward. And we'll track it through this tool, and on a quarterly basis, you'll see this tool, the community will see this tool and know exactly where the district is in terms of progress with this initiative. And so I'll leave that there for any feedback or comment.
Thank you, Brian. I'm going to ask for public comment first. Do we have any public comment on our broadband update tonight?
No, Madam
Seeing-
President.
Thank you. And seeing none, I'm going to open it up to the board. Do any of our board members have any questions or comments regarding our update on broadband? Okay. Shifts.
I'll pipe in here.
Please.
I thank you for bringing up the monday.com. That's always been something kind of lingering out there that I hear about it. So it's good to see that we're putting the tools into use, and look forward to, what comes out of the committee in long term.
Thank you.
Director Laliotis?
Yeah, sure. No, thanks, Brian, that was an excellent summary of where we are with the committee. And I just wanted to, one of the things, offer a couple of things that came out of this coffee talk was that, not only did we kind of hear the same things that we heard in the community process we did early on for the strategic plan and the general manager task force, but that there was a gentleman there who was extremely knowledgeable about these types of things, and it was just refreshing to know that there are people out in this community who who have the professional background and are taking a serious interest in this issue, and perhaps they can help us, come to some further conclusions. So it's nice to have people coming to us, offering their help, especially considering, this is a very complex issue, and there's a lot of moving parts and pieces, and we are certainly not the expert in this arena. So the more the community can offer its assistance on the technical side, I think the better off that this process will evolve. Just I think it was one of the things that was important that kind of came out of the meeting is that I felt was that the district has really had the foresight to build out its fiber infrastructure primarily for its, for our own operations and system needs, but not forgetting that these systems could assist and be expanded on in the future. And I think that was an important topic to bring up, that the district really has focused on that. And another thing I wanted to mention, and once again, thank staff for having the foresight that, as we're doing projects, we're converting, installing new water mains, we're converting old water mains to potential conduit or duct structures to further the ability to distribute communications throughout the district. So staff has definitely been working for many years towards finding solutions, but this is a very complex process and will definitely take quite a bit of time to really work through. So I do want to thank staff for their time with this broadband committee, but also the time that they put in to get us to where we are today. So.
Thank you, Director Laliotis. Agreed. Anybody else, anything? Okay, I have nothing to add. Not a broadband expert.
Brian, it's glad to see this tonight on the agenda. It seems like there's people working on this, and it seems like we kicked it off. It sounds like there's still a lot of work naturally ahead of us, but it sure seems like there's been a lot of work done
Yes, and
at this point. So I'm really glad to see this.
thank you for pointing that out. And I think it's appropriate based on, I'll kind of piggyback on that, Director Aguirre. I also want to take the opportunity to thank those folks who participated in the early task force and who continue to submit resources and links and funding opportunities and examples or benchmarking from both our region and nationally. And so there's definitely folks who participated early on who continue to provide us with resources. This committee is going to use those. So thank you for submitting those. This is, a community effort for sure. That's why we put the community in front of that initiative. And, there's a lot of different models we could take. And this committee is going to come back with a recommendation for the board's consideration. And through the next couple of years, staff will work to pursue those.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, just keep walking the road. Eventually, we're going to get there. I'm going to pause for just a moment because there's a gentleman in the hallway. Feel free to come in and have a seat before moving on to the next item on our agenda, which is item number 9, the public hearing. So this is a public hearing on a proposed electrical rates, including a 100% renewable energy rate and consideration of ordinance 2021-03, setting electric rates and a 100% renewable energy rate for fiscal year 2022 and 2023. So we're going to conduct a public hearing on the proposed electric rates and the optional 100% renewable rate, and we will hopefully approve the ordinance 2021-23, setting electrical rates, including the optional 100% renewable energy rate. And this ordinance, if adopted, will take effect 30 days from adoption and will be implemented starting January 1st, 2022. So now I'm opening the public hearing. So I believe we have a presentation this evening.
Yes.
Take it away.
Yes. Good evening, President Finn and members of the board. This is item number 9. I won't repeat it. Thank you, President Finn, for that introduction. Mike Salmon and I will be presenting together on this item. I'm going to take the easy parts, and I'm going to give the hard parts to Mike, so it's really fair. As we know, electric retail rates are set by the board and adopted by ordinance. In the last 5 years, there's been 2 ordinances adopted for retail rate increases, covering the table as shown on this first slide. As you can see, these were modest increases, probably mostly in line with inflation. However, we note that there were no electric rate increases for roughly that 5-year period from 2012 through 2016. On October 7th of this year, of last year, 2020, the board approved a contract with EES Consulting Incorporated, or EES Consulting, and they were tasked with 2 items: to prepare an electric cost of service analysis, a COSA, retail rate design update, and also a 100% renewable energy retail rate option. And during this year's fiscal year 2022 and 2023 budget adoption process, staff presented the 10-year financial master plan and allowing the board to consider increased revenue requirements to pay for identified capital improvements and cash reserve goals. The electric rate study, or the COSA study, aligns the rate-generated revenues with the financial goals in the financial master plan, and at that time, in the proposed, now approved 2022-2023 budget. At the November 3rd board meeting last month, staff and EES Consulting presented an overview and summary of the rate study and also of the proposed 100% renewable rate option. Staff also presented the proposed fiscal year 22 and 23 budget, including recommended rate increases, revenue increases for the rates for 8.5% for fiscal year 22 and 6.5% for fiscal year 23. And based on feedback received from the board, staff and EES Consulting developed a recommended rate design for all customer rate classes. And this rate design provides a increase in annual electric utility revenues in alignment with the approved fiscal year 22 and 23 budget. And it also builds incrementally toward our capital investment needs and the approved reserved funding goals for the utility. And at this time, I will turn over the presentation to Mike. So we'll switch seats here.
You're on a roll, Joe.
Thank you, Joe. I also have the rate consultant, Amber Gershwin, on speakerphone, if we needed to go there, so she's listening in, just so you're aware. The current proposed recommended rate changes presented here, it's a little small for the screen, I apologize for the audience, but the revenue requirement in the cost of service analysis, we take it from there, and that revenue requirement is then distributed amongst our customer classes. to create specific rates that will achieve that revenue requirement from a revenue standpoint. And one of our most popular rates is our, two most popular rates are our primary resident rate and our non-permanent, also called secondary resident rate. And the rates are presented here. The effective increase for 2022 for primary resident is 8.5% or $10.54 per month on average. That's an average KWH bill of 800 KWH, which is the right at the average for our primary resident customer base. The non-permanent or secondary resident rate, the effective rate increase is 9%, slightly higher, and that's that average bill would be $98, which is based on a $475 kilowatt hour average usage, which is substantially less than our primary resident rate. These rates, these percentage increases are not in exact alignment with what the revenue requirement that comes out of the cost of service analysis study says. It would be much greater percentage increases actually on both primary and secondary. But one of the first things you read on page 1 of the any rate setting guidance document that you can find, the last one I was looking at was 2 weeks ago, the NARUC one, that's FERC guidance at a national level, and the first thing it talks about is that setting rates is more art than science. All right, so there's a balance here to adjust over time, not get, because the study says exactly this, you do exactly that. You have to balance that with where you're at are with currently with your rates and kind of get there over time. We do have a larger increase recommendation in the standard monthly customer service charge to try and shift some of those dollars to the fixed portion of our cost. And that's kind of an industry-wide trend throughout the nation. It does more in alignment with the cost structure of the utility itself. And so over time, we'll increase that a little bit, not to get completely to fix the fixed side, but to shift a little bit more of that cost to the fixed side, more closer to how, similar to how water is over time.
Mike, I have a quick question. How many customers are in the permanent residence and how many are in the non-permanent? Like, what's the breakdown? It's 60-40, 70-30?
40% of the residential are primary and 60% are secondary rate.
Thank you.
On small commercial, the average increase is slightly less. That's again based on kind of translating the revenue requirement from the COSA study into rate adjustments. We did took the base charge as well. So a 5% average increase for small commercial, medium commercial 5%, and large commercial has a much larger increase than either any of the other sectors that I've previously covered, and that was due as well due to the revenue requirement from the cost of service analysis. There's about, forgotten the exact number, but around 10 large commercial customers, and 1 or 2 of them are ourselves, the water side of our business. We also, as included in your documentation, have a renewable energy rate adder. That was based on a industry analysis of what other utilities are doing for a renewable rate. And then we looked at what our cost of power difference is between regular or standard mix versus the renewable mix. And the recommendation is a 2 cents per kilowatt hour optional rate adder for those customers that want to go 100% renewable. So overall, average 8.5% increase, a little bit larger than your standard inflation. It is, as Joe mentioned earlier, a bit of a catch-up from many years of flat rates and then small increases of late. This is, I'm going to talk little bit about where we stand from a benchmarking standpoint. The arrow on the left is the current rates for residential and Truckee. The district's rates are on the far left with the arrow pointing down, and these are other NCPA. The source of this is the Northern California Power Association presentation back in August. So, and I would mention that these are the 2021 rates. Every one of these utilities will be raising their rates. So if we shift, we don't shift all the way to the far right next to PG&E, of course not, but we may shift one or two places, but we're not going to shift dramatically in 1 or 2 years in general, highly unlikely. I also looked at California U.S. Energy EIA information on cost per kilowatt hour, how we compare. On the left is far left is 2020, and then 2021 August to show you the year-to-year change at a California level is up 12.4%. Our current rates for residential blended, the 60-40 blended of primary and secondary, our blended rate is still below that. And then with the proposed rate, our blended rate will be 1872, still below current rates at a California industry averages for California. We'll still be below it as well, below current rates even after 2023's rate increase recommendation.
Mike, I have another question. Do you think there would ever be any chance where there would only be one rate and it's not split out between primary and secondary?
I have not heard that commentary. I know other utilities have that. There is a great disparity in the usage. Again, the average usage for secondary is 475 kilowatt hours per month, 800 for closer to 800 for primary, and yet there's a significant amount of fixed costs in utility operations. Purchase power is 50% of our operating expenses, but you also think about the capital investment that's required for our distribution system. So there's a large amount of sunk cost that need to be recovered, whether you use 1 kilowatt hour or 1,000 kilowatt hours. So, the disparity may get a little smaller over time as we move the fixed charge portion up. So the kilowatt per hour might be a little bit smaller gap.
Thank you.
So also from a comparison standpoint, the compounded annual growth rate to 2022 after this rate increase of 8.5 for primary customers will, over 10 years, the average increase per year is 1.8%. So we're making up a little bit for lost time, but we're not making it up. We're making it up in the rate, but you're not making it up in absolute dollars because you're only now getting there. You didn't do that over time. And so it's time, as recommended in the budget and the cost of service study and these rate recommendations, it's time to get there a little bit on the rates. The average rate increase for the last 10 years will average 1.8% per year with this increase. Secondary customers is slightly higher at 2.3% over the last 10 years. And then the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics growth rate for the 10-year period in San Francisco, Oakland, and Hayward is 4.1%. So for the 10-year period. So well below basically half of what the regional market has done in the Bay Area. I'd also like to point out that one of our other competitors in the region, Liberty Utilities, has an active rate increase in the docket, so to speak, for 2022 to raise permanent residential by slightly over 40%, and seasonal customers, secondary homes, over 50%.
Wow.
Sorry, Tony.
We also continue to compare favorably to the California industry averages for, on a commercial level as well. So on the left is the California 2020 August and 2021 August for California industry on a commercial basis. And then on the right is our current 2022 and 2023 commercial rates blended for all commercial classes together. What are you going to take from here? The attachments in the staff report, just for everyone's reference, refresher is the ordinance itself is attachment 1 in the backup. Attachment 2 was the recommended rates, also referred to as proposed rate 1, and then there was an alternative recommendation that we do not recommend, but it does achieve the same end revenues and closely, is called proposed rate 2. And then the complete cost of service study, including rate design recommendations, is attachment 3. And then a little bit of background for the renewable rate study, also commonly called our green rate, is attachment 4. All right, Joe.
Thank you, Mike. So by way of reminder, if the board adopts new rates, the following schedule will be implemented. Last month, of course, we presented an item for the proposed rate increases and discussed both the COSA study and the proposed green rate, or 100% renewable energy rate. And also the board scheduled a public hearing for tonight for December 1st. December 1st meeting, we're holding that public hearing, and the board also has in front of them for their consideration Ordinance 2021-3 to increase the rates and also to adopt a potential 100% renewable rate. And if the board adopts the ordinance, the rates would become effective 30 days from the date of that ordinance, so that they would become effective December 31st, actually. But from a rate perspective, and a billing perspective, excuse me, the rates would be effective January 1st of each year, beginning in the year 2022. So as far as fiscal impact, the recommendation to adopt and set new electric rates for the next budget cycle, by way of summary, the overall effective rate increase for fiscal year 22 is 8.5%, and the overall increase for fiscal year 23 is 6.5%. And then also, we're proposing the optional 100% renewable energy rate of 2 cents per kilowatt hour. And these new rates will have a direct impact on our generated revenues and for budget expenditures for across all our electric utility operations and capital improvements. We estimate that for fiscal year 23, the 8.5% increase would generate an incremental little over $2.4 million in revenue to meet the approved fiscal year budget. And the 6.5% increase in fiscal year 23 would generate an incremental $2 million required to meet the approved budget expenditures. And so it's staff recommendations tonight to conduct the public hearing on the proposed electric rates and optional 100% renewable energy rate, and to approve Ordinance 2021-03, setting electric rates, including an optional 100% renewable energy rate for fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 23. This ordinance will take effect 30 days from adoption and will be implemented starting on January 1st, 2022. Thank you, and we would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Mike, for all your work you've put into this and your presentation this evening. Now we're getting to the juicy part. Before I open it up to the directors, because I do have some topics that I want to cover before we vote on approval or not, specifically regarding the green rate and the uses for the green rate, and how we're going to implement that. But first, I'm going to open it up to public comment on the subject of our rates.
I'm John Henry Byer, in Copper full-time. And there's 4 of us here tonight, at least 4 of us, who want to learn about the green rate, or the renewable rate. That's really why we came tonight. So I have a couple of questions.
John, I think your mic's off. It's just that switch on the bottom there.
You are right?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Okay, now I'll back up. Shall I start over? I'm John Henry Byer, live in Tahoe Donner, full-time. About the renewable, 100% renewable rate, after all, the electrons that we use are all in the same transmission line. You can't pick out one and say, well, that's from renewable and that's from something else. But I guess my first question is this just something we optionally sign up for, an extra 2 cents per kilowatt hour? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
I have rooftop solar. Over the course of a year, I generate more electricity than I use. So, how would you charge me an extra 2 cents a kilowatt hour since you don't charge me anything? Since I generate more than I use.
I'm going to guess you wouldn't sign up.
No answer to that?
I'm going to imagine that you wouldn't sign up for it.
Right, yeah.
What's that? Like,
I would imagine that you wouldn't sign up for it, where,
well, I'm not sure I would sign up for it anyhow, because it appears it's not like I'm getting anything extra.
I think that's where what we as the board need to discuss during this meeting. What does
Okay.
that rate mean?
Well, we're
And what are we going to reserve
Here
those
to
funds for?
try to understand that. If the money were used to do something that would really improve the system, improve the reliability, maybe for batteries, maybe for geothermal. Joe said the current portfolio does not include geothermal, but perhaps it should, since it's renewable. It's 24/7, so it's base load. It would let you go to a higher percentage of renewables without needing some other backup. Let's just say batteries or something or other. So just a suggestion. I guess I'll leave it there for the moment, but some of my fellow compatriots here might
Thank
have
you.
other questions.
Perfect, thank you.
I'm John Sorensen. I live here full-time in Truckee. I have a question that when I look at what we need to do here in Truckee to get to 100% renewable, to encourage everybody to be all electric, we have a big job in front of us. And I think of it, I'm a systems engineer by background, and I think of it as how does this fit into all the system changes that we have to make? You know, what does changing or adding 2 cents on what we call renewable electricity in this case, how does that fit in? What are we really going to use this for besides saying, okay, this adds a little to our percentage of what we can say is renewable? So that's my question is, how does this fit into the grand scheme? And what is there a grand scheme? So what are we using this extra money for? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Matt Tucker, 10-year-plus full-time resident of Truckee. Yeah, my question is along the lines of the previous two speakers, but I guess I want to just emphasize that the concern of, my concern and those of my friends here is that, this 2 cents is actually buying some additionality. In other words, we're not just saying that we're taking our existing portfolio of renewables and just giving these customers more of it. We want to make sure that that 2 cents per kilowatt hour is actually going to additional decarbonization, additional renewables, right? So that we're actually getting something for our 2 cents a kilowatt hour. John Henry brought up the possibility of using it for storage. I think one potentially useful use for that money would be to build out a network of distributed energy storage around the community, and that would provide us with some resilience. There are flow battery companies out there today that are actually providing flow battery long-term energy storage for utility customers. So I don't know if anybody in this utility has actually looked at any of the flow battery technology, but I think that could be a potentially useful use for those dollars. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Deirdre Henderson again. I think that it's going to be really important. First of all, let me say thank you for thinking about a green rate, for thinking about doing something that helps to move us forward into the renewable energy future that we need. I'm not sure that the green rate is the most significant thing that we can do, but I'm glad to see any movement in that direction. Unlike the last time around with a green rate, when a green rate was considered, I hope that there is sufficient additionality here. But let me say that assuming that you decide what the use of proceeds of the green rate is going to be, I think the rollout of the green rate, the marketing of the green rate to the community is going to be essential. Not all of us understand what that is. Not all of us understand the role of the PUD in helping us to address the climate problem that we face. And I think that it's going to be incumbent on the PUD to make sure that the rationale for doing this is clear to the community. And I hope that it won't be done just by an insert in our utility bill or an announcement at a formal board meeting. I hope that you will actually reach out to the community. And I think that that will be meetings with community members around Truckee. I think it will mean making sure that everyone understands what the benefits are directly and indirectly to them individually and to the community. This is not the first time, if we all are doing our jobs to address the climate crisis that we are facing, that we're going to have to roll something out to the community. There's a big education component for all of us here. And I think that that will be, since this is one of the first initiatives that will individually affect people in the community, that it's really, really important that it be done well. And while I urge you to have a sense of urgency about doing all of these things, I also urge you to take the time to do it right, because this will be essential to its success, and it will also create the pattern for future efforts of this type. And hopefully there will be many future efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you all. And that certainly is a great intro, because those public comments touched on pretty much all of the things that I have been thinking about. What we haven't really discussed what we would use this green rate for. Like, how do we explain to the public what we're doing? Are we adding additional green generation to the mix, not just putting this money towards purchases that we already make? right? So that's really just accounting changes. It's not bringing on new, and I understand that an individual electron coming across our transmission line can't be siphoned into any person's house, but we can green up the whole mix. So, creating that market and investing, putting our money there and to add green generation is important. I also think, we're facing a related but separate issue, our reliability. This year over the summer, we had, the community became much more aware of how sort of tenuous our connection to electricity is via Nevada Energy. And it really sort of elevated the need for local generation or backup of some sort. Now, since we have to address this and we have to address our, the climate change situation, we should make sure that those things are complementary. We shouldn't do them both at the same time, ideally. And so what do those sorts of solutions look like? More distributed resources, more people with solar and battery backup, a virtual power plant consisting of everybody's Tesla batteries, or a big battery, or we don't know. We haven't really discussed it, and we have, I feel very strongly that we have to sort of connect the dots for people and ask the community. Like, we're at a moment, we're about a year out from the last time we really approached the community for feedback about the direction the PUD was going in, and I think this would be a really good time to touch base with our ratepayers and say, hey, we're looking at this rate, a green rate, a renewable rate. I think as a green rate, if we're looking at decarbonization, there's a lot of things that we can do that aren't just purchasing new green power purchases, right? If we can help with electrification here in the community, that's our biggest greenhouse gas hill here in Truckee is transportation. So if we can use this green rate to help us more quickly and more effectively shift the transportation to an electric, versions, if we can address reliability with it, I think these are compelling uses that we can take the pulse of the community and see we'd have to be very specific. This isn't something like, hey, how should we spend the green rate? I think we need to define 2 or 3 different opportunities that we think are appropriate and explain them and then ask for feedback. If you're somebody who would sign up for a green rate, is this use compelling to you? Does that make sense? So that's kind of where we am, and I agree with Deirdre that there is urgency, but a rollout that is ineffective is a waste of time and a waste of energy. So I think we need to be careful and we need to be thorough, and we as a board need to discuss what we think appropriate uses for these funds would be. Okay.
I totally agree, and now is not the night, right?
Well, it kind of
we need
is
to
the
take
night.
the time to do it right. So I think discussing where that money goes is a little short-sighted, or just not enough time. I guess I just want to clarify that request. Like, right now, this evening with the public hearing, we haven't prepared any background for where the money's going. So making that decision to me tonight is way too early. But we can actually approve it and then roll it out later with proper planning of how that money is spent.
So I agree with the approve it, but not, I don't know. See, if we approve it and we're saying if this rate goes live January 1st, and we don't have any corresponding information to help people decide to sign up for it or understand the uses for it.
Well, it probably won't get signed up for until, it's like we
It
haven't even,
won't.
have we had a green rate workshop? and to discuss where that money's gonna be spent. And like, we haven't even done our normal stuff we do here at the PUD. So that's why I'm saying we could approve it, but then deciding right now as a board, I like mentally, no way. I need to have my normal stuff that we do, a workshop, talk about it, how we're gonna spend it. Yeah, I'm not, in the mindset of brainstorming green rate ideas,
Right.
because it wasn't agendized as that kind of a workshop. For me, I didn't
No.
prepare at all
Got it.
to brainstorm on where to spend the workshop. So I guess I'm going back to like, I'm not even ready mentally. I mean, I could dive in, but then we didn't even agendize this
Right.
kind of a workshop.
Jeff, why don't we let our boys say,
Back to the boys.
they're the ones that are in the know.
They are in the know. That is the,
I don't want to squish it, Krista,
no, we're not-
but
we
it's
are
just
not
like, well,
squishing
I'm
it.
just not ready for.
it is not going to be squished. That's what I
and that's
strongly felt we need to bring up that subject before we willy-nilly approve a green rate.
If it would be at the board's pleasure, there's a couple of items I'd just like to comment real quick. One is in response and support and agreement. Ms. Henderson talked about the outreach and the rollout and the public engagement is going to be critical. I agree 100%. For us to do this appropriately as a district and be effective, that's going to be crucial in our process moving forward. This evening's agenda item is to talk about the structure of the renewable rate versus the blended portfolio rate. There is, some nuances, administrative nuances there. They're in the background that these rates and power contents have to be reported individually. So those who subscribe to a renewable green rate, so to speak, that gets reported from a compliance perspective individually or separated out by the district from our blended portfolio. So it doesn't continue to be blended as one reporting mechanism. Doesn't mean that renewable component can't grow. We hope it grows. That's the goal here, is that renewable component of our content reporting grows over time. We don't know at what rate currently that happens, and that goes back to the rollout, the education, the engagement on what these funds are allocated for, and that'll be at the board's discretion. It would be my recommendation, continue the discussion, but we can also have an opportunity, perhaps in February, to have a subsequent workshop and really getting the board's guidance on how to direct those funds and manage those. Our team will account for those funds as subscriptions begin to this rate begin to grow, and so that funding resource will be tracked. And we'll have an opportunity, the board will have an opportunity to continue to have these discussions and give staff direction on how to proceed with those. I think critical to this process and for the discussion here, to the public comments, that we need to come back with some additional engagement and rollout and give the board opportunity to really dive in on what this looks like.
What, Mr. Byer? Let's raise your hand. It's okay.
I want to make sure you understand that the four of us who've spoken are all very committed to reducing greenhouse gas emissions. That's what this is all about. I don't want to pay extra just so I can wear a merit badge saying, oh, gee, it's still all the same electrons coming through, but now you're saying, okay, I'm buying electrons from renewable sources, but it's all the same electricity coming in. No, I'm not going to pay extra for that. But if I am willing to pay extra, if you tell me what our utility is doing actively in real time to significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions, I am willing to pay extra for that, and we all are. That's why we're here. That's the message we want to get across. So we need something concrete, whether it's batteries, whether it's geothermal, I don't know, but it's got to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Thank you.
Thank you. It has to be specific, which leads me to my next question. Does this have to be used for power purchases? Can it be used for other programs? You know, like investing in a battery, for example, like investing in creating a more equitable access to dispersed energy resources like solar or batteries? Or can we use it for different things than pure power purchases?
The optional rate would be a discretionary fund at the board's discretion and guidance.
Okay, so there's no legal saying, because people are paying 2 cents more per kilowatt hour, that it's tied to a power purchase.
Correct. It is a discretionary fund that the
Okay.
board would have some latitude there.
If I can, is my
Please.
microphone live?
It doesn't sound like it. Now it is.
Now it is. So the answer is, you have discretion, as Brian said, to use those funds for a related purpose. Electric rates are not subject to Prop 218, as you know. They are subject to Prop 26. We have to have a reasonable cost relationship here. But this green or renewable rate, if it was adopted, is completely voluntary. So you're not mandating it, you're not requiring it, so that relationship to the actual cost of service doesn't exist. And so you therefore have flexibility to use any revenue generated through that discretionary customer decision to subscribe to that rate, to use it for other purposes. So that's a long-winded, yes, you have discretion.
Okay, that's good. I like having discretion, that's helpful. Joe, you look like you wanted to say something.
No.
Okay, I'm sorry. Masks can be confusing. Okay,
So Krista, are you good with creating the bucket? I guess that's what we'd be doing tonight, creating the bucket. Funds could go into it, and then at some point later on, as Brian mentioned, have some workshops to really nail down what we're going to then spend that money on. Tangible climate carbon reduction strategies.
yeah, greenhouse gas reductions in this
Or-
community.
Yeah, sorry, I said yeah.
That's okay,
Yeah,
it's all, I get it. There's a lot of terms and a lot of, but I think specificity is very important in this conversation. And I am okay with that, but again, there is an urgency, and I think what I want from staff, and you guys can correct me or continue, is specific recommendations on uses for these funds that are either adding renewable generation to our portfolio or within this community, helping our reliability, things like backup battery, distributed energy resources, electrification programs that are effective for where we live, so we can start shifting, our transportation greenhouse gas burden into electricity. I mean, right now, most of us drive cars that are 100% dirty energy, right? So any movement on all of those fronts would be effective, but what is going to be the most effective, and what can we accomplish with the funds that we, hopefully will get people to sign up for? Does that make sense to my fellow board members?
I, in reading this memo today, I saw this 100% renewable thing. And it's, okay for the, and I just assumed that it was, everybody was gonna, either we do it or not, and it's everybody. And then I found out it's volunteer. Well, the volunteer group, and you're very right about what are we gonna get for that? And so this is why I thought it was all the district pays if this thing passes. Because how do you separate that money to whatever we want to spend it on at a later date? When we have a fund, so we got a fund built up. And so, I mean, there's questions right in the middle of that. First of all, there's this elite group that's paying into it, and they're the ones that should get some benefit out of it and know that they're getting benefit. But then, we're all getting benefit from this elite group.
We are.
We are.
Yeah, we are.
So, I wondered why it's a voluntary basis and not part of the program.
Whoa.
Joe's taking it to the
Joe's
next level.
radical. Yeah, that's a legit question. Why aren't we just taking it to the next level? What?
Well, yeah, do we pass it or we not pass it?
Well, it's voluntary, this tonight would be just voluntary,
Well, yeah.
extra 2 cents.
The
Yeah.
people that want
Per kilowatt hour,
to
which
initiate and join the.
Go into the
group.
program, correct.
is about maybe another 10% increase on their bill,
2%, it could be.
approximately, yeah.
Approximately. There's, across the United States, industry-wide in the electric utility industry, we're not the first to offer a green rate. This is a widely adopted practice by utilities to allow customers who are very focused on wanting to say or wanting to be able to have and to tell people that they're purchasing 100% renewable electricity, which this rate will allow. As General Manager Wright said, right now we have one power content label that we file with the California Energy Commission. That power content label has all of our resources in it. With the optional green rate, we will have 2 power content labels. We'll have the one we have now, plus we will have, we'll call it the 100% renewable energy rate power content label that will tie all the electricity produced. As we have noted in the study materials, we're going to tie it from our City of Murray landfill gas plant, which is a renewable resource. That runs, it's a baseload resource and runs 24/7. The people that sign up for the renewable rate will have energy deducted from the output of that plant secured to them. So on the power content label, all those who sign up, their energy, the total amount of kilowatt hours that those customers produce will be deducted from the amount from the City of Murray landfill gas plant. That amount that's been deducted will not be available and not be in the other power content label, the blended mix that our other customers have. So it's not, it is it's an accounting process that will occur both at the PUD. We will keep track of the extra funds that the people voluntarily sign up for. So we'll account for whatever those funds are. But we will also account to the state by way of our power content labels where that energy goes and from what specific resources. So we will have 2 power content labels going forward if the board adopts this, again, voluntary, optional green energy rate. And again, we are being consistent with a wide range of other utilities across California and across the nation that offer an optional, voluntary green energy rate.
So that would be a starting point, like, because that's what we already have in our mix, because we know power purchase agreements don't fall out of the sky. They're not magic. We don't have something lined up right this second to say, we're signing up this new generation to fulfill the promise of 100% renewable energy rate. But what if, I think this is what we need to define for our customers. If we decide to use these funds in a different way versus power purchasing, they're not going to get 100% renewable energy in their power content. It's going to be something different. It's going to be, we're using it towards, a down payment on a utility scale battery storage system, right? So how is that?
Well, it should be noted that the whole basis for the 2 cents was based on that cost of service analysis.
Right.
In other words, our blended cost of our blended portfolio. Our portfolio, of course, is blended. We have wind, we have landfill gas, we'll soon have solar this coming year, hydroelectric energy, carbon-free sources of energy, and they have varying price points. And so our cost of service for the blended rate, the retail rates that we offer to our customers is based on that blended portfolio. Some items are very high, some items are low, and so there's a retail rate that we finally come up with. The retail rate we have now, or the retail rate that we're proposing the board adopt for future years. This green energy rate is tied to the City of Murray landfill gas.
Okay.
That landfill gas is above, it costs more than our blended energy rate. And so that is the reason for the 2 cents. And again, it's tied to a specific power, since we're going to have 2 power content labels going forward. This is a strict accounting situation. It's 2 cents more because landfill gas costs more, but it is 100% renewable. There is a demand in the marketplace across the country. We'll see what Truckee is if the board adopts it, but there is a demand for customers want to be able to sign up for a 100% renewable rate. That's true across the country. Now, some customers may not. Again, it's a voluntary rate, but they can truly claim that it is 100% renewable because we will have a strict accounting and 2 power content labels going forward. And the 2 cents is tied to a real dollar. It's tied to a real cost because that cost of power for landfill gas is higher than our blended rate.
Okay, so essentially, we had to start somewhere.
Yes.
That's what this is. We started with the renewables that we have. We're looking at how much it costs. We need to set a benchmark. And we're going to use the funds as they come in to expand that benchmark. Because, this is, again, accounting sleight of hand somewhat. Like, it's not changing anything real in our energy mix right off the bat, because it can't. We can, like I said, we don't have, power purchase agreements aren't going to fall out of the sky. So I get that. And then I hope, Joe, I think the reason that we're not doing it across the board is because that would be a 10% increase on top of our 8.5% increase. And I think we're all very sensitive to.
I knew that part.
Yeah.
But I also knew that if we ever come to that 100% renewable date of ours, what is that date? The year?
2030.
The what?
2030?
30?
The 100% renewable.
We come to
Truckee.
that, I thought it was a fund to pay for that difference because there's going to be an increase in that renewable rate. As I hear our staff talking, that it's not as easy as it was. By the time we got where we are now, it's going to be a little harder to get, and it's going to be costlier, and I thought that this money was going to go for that.
That's what we get to decide. Yes, Deirdre.
Well, yeah, but to volunteer to begin with, I don't think you're going to get very many volunteers.
Well, I think that's the problem.
So,
But
this has been an interesting discussion because it sounds to me, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that there really is no additionality to the green rate that you have been thinking of, that you are simply allocating an existing portion of the portfolio, of the renewable portfolio, 100% to the people who pay the higher rate, which seems to me logically should mean that people who are getting the somewhat dirtier part of the portfolio should be paying a lower rate. We're not getting anything extra out of this. So how do we go to the community and say, please do this? It just doesn't make any sense.
That's what I was trying to get. Yeah, Kim.
And looking at it, in the report, it says revenue impacts. If we did get the 1% participation, which is what was basically told to us is what the approximate participation is, it's $50,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
which isn't a lot. So $50,000 plus a portion of that, I would figure would kind of go towards the accounting side of things, and there's, the overhead that has to happen. And even, 48 primary residential people is part of that 1%, and I hear 4 of them don't want to sign up for it because they feel it doesn't go far enough.
Well, let's figure out what this discussion, I think, is
So,
hopefully
yeah.
trying to get to. What
what
do
I'm-
we use those funds for?
What I'm getting at, and we're not sure. So, are we going to approve this green rate that's voluntary that may, get $50,000? I would almost rather see that where the district, if we're going along with anything within our business, if we have a savings from what was budgeted, that savings maybe go into a green bucket where we go and we can promote green programs and try to encourage people. And, I think that personally, that will raise a lot more money if we do have savings along the way throughout the district, and take that money to where the people want to see it go towards green energy initiatives of some sort, and have that come back as part of the workshop. If we do have this extra money, what can we spend it on? So that's kind of my 2 cents on the whole thing.
Yes.
I think we're going around in circles here. I think that if there are going to be additional proceeds from the green rate, okay, we need to know what those proceeds are going to be used for.
That's right.
And on that basis, we can go out and sell it to people in the community, not on the basis of, we're going to allocate what we already have to these, more to you, and you're going to pay more for it. But if you're going to pay more for it, we're going to create this, we'll call it a trust fund. And we're going to use that for the following purpose or purposes. And that's going to be in your individual benefit, to be your individual benefit, or to the community's benefit in this way. I think we need that if we're going to expect people to pay more. I mean, otherwise, it just doesn't make sense.
I agree, and I think the 2 cents per kilowatt hour is a starting point. And that's, the only thing that needs to happen here is we need to define how we're going to use those funds. That's all that needs to happen.
Isn't that already defined? Didn't Joe just basically say that the shift in resources from, buying the landfill gas, which you said is more expensive, I don't know if there's going to be a surplus of funds. I think that's what the 2 cents is actually going
You know what,
towards.
I'm going to have to say that doesn't work for me, because we're already paying for this landfill gas. It's already we're all already getting the benefit of this. We're all already paying for it. If we're asking people to go above and beyond that, voluntarily giving us 2 more cents, we can't just say you're paying for the more expensive part of our portfolio. That's not actually accomplishing a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions in any way. Our portfolio is already doing that, so I feel like we need to.
Understood. Let me ask Joe a question. Joe, are there additional expenses incurred by implementing this rate?
There will be additional administrative expenses, as we will have to track and submit to the state 2 different reporting for 2 different power contents. Again, this is industry standard. We're not the first utility to implement a green rate, and this is what other utilities do. So there will be administrative costs associated with that.
I think there's been a great discussion, and I really appreciate the input from the public. And Joe, you did have something to say, so I appreciate your input. I feel like we're talking about apples and oranges here. I mean, I really do. I think the intention of this green rate was more along the lines of what Joe was calling industry standard, which is satisfying a need for people to be, I hate to say it, but wearing that badge of that they are getting 100% renewable energy. And that's a thing, I guess, in this country. But what I'm hearing from Krista and the members of the public is that's not the thing that we necessarily want here in this town. So I think the question for this board is, and I appreciate Kim talking about revenue, because I really don't think that, the level of participation that we're going to get in this program is going to generate revenue that is meaningful to the larger discussion that you are bringing up, which I don't disagree with, but I also think that while this is something that can help, it's a different animal. And, if we're serious about electrification and, pushing even harder for renewables and greenhouse gas reductions, I mean, those are serious conversations and those are serious dollars. I don't think we're talking about dollars in this program tonight, 2 cents kilowatt hour, and what we anticipate as far as participation will have a meaningful effect on what we're actually talking about, what we really see as the future. That's not going to be decided tonight. So I think what this board really needs to decide tonight is, do we want to roll out this 2 cent program based on the merits that have been discussed tonight? And use it as a launching point for having bigger discussions and understanding what we're actually talking about with dollars and cents for some of these bigger ideas.
That's right.
So as it's a voluntary program, I think people can sign up if they want, and they can make that decision. But I also think that we have, this is a big topic. We need, and this was a good launching point, and we need to have bigger discussions because there is a lot more investment needed to begin to ratchet up the levels of some of the desires of this community to get to a certain level of greenhouse gas reductions, renewable energy, reliability, storage, redundancy. All of these things are great ideas, but they cost a lot of money, and I really don't think that that's what we're talking about tonight.
Well, I'd like to, as you said, and I go with everything you said there toward the end and what you said. We have to start someplace because there are going to be some expenses that are going to be bumped up for sure. We know that. And we have to start something. And I saw this plan before, or as I was reading it this afternoon. That's another fund to help fund our greenhouse renewables. And so and after thinking or hearing Joe say that it's naturally a volunteer thing, so people don't have to sign up, but if they do, they can. And then also that the district has got a bookkeeping method of keeping this money assured, and we have to let the state know about this account. I mean, it's pretty well regulated, and it's going to be right in there. So as far as I think we have to start somewhere, and this is probably tonight, to kick it off and see where it goes.
So clearly, I think we all agree that we need more information and we need more specificity.
Well, yeah, but we're going to go along.
Right.
I think, well, Joe was pretty clear. It's 2 cents a kilowatt hour if you want to buy 100% renewable energy, and that's it. That's all that money is going to. If we want to invest, Tony helped clarify, in batteries and other things, well, then we need to double that rate, triple that, make it 10, 20 cents a kilowatt hour green rate, and then we can really invest, because the 2 cents gets you 100% renewable energy and then nothing else. So if we want to invest and create the bucket, so just clarifying, didn't clearly understand it. That bucket is going to landfill gas to buy that, so I can have 100%. If we want to invest, we need to make that rate higher. It needs.
Or alternatively, we can explain to people that they're not going to get 100% renewable for that additional 2 points, but we're going to instead put it aside into a fund and decide where the best, most effective use of those funds for reducing this community's greenhouse gas emissions will go.
I think we're going to use it for the.
Oh, I'm sure, well, this is the question. This is exactly what we're discussing, because, if we just, I think people would prefer to see that that money is going to bring additional green resources online, not just pay for the green resources that we already are paying for in our mix. I wouldn't sign up for that.
So
And I am the biggest proponent of.
So, how it's written right now, Joe, it's 100% green renewable rate, correct?
Correct. What this, if the board adopts this rate, the district is obligated to put a second power content label officially filed for public consumption and the CEC, saying that this energy is coming from a specific resource.
So we can't just tonight decide not to do it, implement the rate and rewrite it and put it in a different bucket and invest it in something else. We can't do that because this ordinance is not written to create that.
Right.
As I understand it, that's correct. This, just like, and we're not unique in this. Like every other utility that adopts a green rate ties it to a resource or a group of resources because of the cost of those resources, and it's accounted. We have to file reports with the state, telling the state that yes, they went to these resources. So if the board would like to do something different with the green rate, then
We need to pull this
don't adopt this green rate.
and redo it.
Okay, so even though it's discretionary, it's not that discretionary.
Well, no, I think, yeah.
It's optional for our customers, but once we adopt it, we need to follow the regulations of the state to account for what we're doing.
So if we're saying it's 100% renewable rate, it has to be 100% renewable rate. Like that's what these funds would be used for.
Yeah.
The renewable energy that we already have in our portfolio, because that's what we have right now. That's,
And that's what every other utility, that's what a green rate is tied to, an existing resource in someone's portfolio. Because there's a demand out there. Some customers would like to say that I am purchasing 100% renewable resource from a particular resource.
Yeah.
That is what green rates
have been defined as. That's what they've been defined as currently.
We're not doing anything different. We're following industry practice. We're going to follow, if the board adopts it, we're going to follow the state regulations to have that separate power content label, tying it to a specific resource. Of course, it's to the board's discretion. If that doesn't sit well,
then don't do it.
I'd just like to make a quick comment. So I think what's being described, and I understand to some extent our hands are tied because green rate is evidently, it's a very specific thing and it has to be, this specific portfolio. So I think we all understand that now. But I think what's interesting for the four of us here, and I think Krista as well, is that, we're going to go in front of the community and we're going to say, this is not something that we support. And the reason for that is simply that it's not moving the needle. So it's a good public relations kind of thing for the utility in the sense that they get to say we're offering a green rate to motivated customers, but it's not getting us any closer to being a greener community. So just so you know, I appreciate that everyone here in this room we're all on the same team, we're all working towards the same goal. It's just that we feel like when we're doing something public like this and putting it out to the public, it has to be something genuine, not $50,000 that's, you know, going to have a lot of accounting costs and isn't actually going to increase the mix of renewables in our utility, right? And it's not actually electrifying anything. So, you know, I think you won't have our support, you know, which isn't the end of the world, I'm sure, for the PUD, but I just want you to know that, like, this isn't what we're here for. So, you know, it's more of an accounting sleight of hand that will, some customers who want to be green are going to go, gee, that sounds good. I'm going to click that box. It sounds like a good thing. I want to be green. But they don't understand that it's not actually moving the needle. So, thanks.
President Finn, if I might, just one of the options for the board's consideration this evening would be to adopt the ordinance as stated with the amendment or the revision that we wouldn't include the 100% renewable rate this evening. So the board would move forward with the 2022 and 2023 electric blended rate as proposed, and that staff could come back with, at the board's discretion and guidance, an item to consider a renewable reserve fund or something of that nature that funds, at the board's guidance, you know, progress or carbon reduction or the expansion of our renewable portfolio or all the other items that were discussed this evening. And that would be more in the format of a fund contribution, so to speak, at a voluntary basis rather than a 100% renewable rate.
That's kind of what I was just going to ask. Do we have, you know, can we invent other?
Well, let's just, I just
Thanks.
want to clarify something. I mean, it's $50,000. Our contracts are flexible. So in the end, we'll still be purchasing more landfill gas, approximately $50,000 potentially, or is it strictly fixed? I mean, you know, the market changes, our demands change. So I just wanted to clarify Matt's comment. You know, does it really not move the needle at all? More people, if people have signed up for this, they're buying landfill gas. We still have a portfolio here. I guess it just.
Is our contract flexible?
What Matt said doesn't feel like, is that really true? It won't move the needle. It doesn't sit well hearing it. You know, I want everybody to support it because maybe they want 100% renewable rate to purchase.
But I think that's the question. Is it flexible? Does that $50,000, if we put it towards that contract, do we get more energy for it? Or is the contract fixed? We buy this many megawatt hours per year from that resource?
Yeah, because it's so fluctuating, right? You know, we might have 100,000 guests this Christmas instead of 98 or something. You know, our purchases of power change. So can we buy a little bit more landfill gas and actually move that needle a little bit?
Do you want to, go ahead.
We have an existing contract with the city of Murray. It's a purchase power agreement. It's for 70% of the output of that landfill gas generation plant, and I forget the exact megawatts that it is. But on a yearly basis, it accounts for, I want to say, just a little under 20% of our total energy requirements for the district on an annual basis. So the green rate, as it's proposed, and as we're following standard industry practice, it's simply, there is a demand out there for people who want to say, I want to have 100% green energy. So the extra money is tied to the fact that their entire purchase would come from that resource. So if, for instance, the city of Murray, if we get 10,000 megawatt hours of generation from the city of Murray on an annual basis, and enough customers sign up to claim 1,000 of that, then on our power content label, 1,000 megawatt hours would be allocated to the 100% renewable energy. 9,000 megawatt hours would be paid for and allocated to our blended rate. Our other customers are still paying for the city of Murray gas in their blended rate, but there's other resources that are lower cost than the city of Murray. So they're also paying an appropriate rate. If by move the needle, you mean purchasing additional energy, we would not be purchasing additional energy, we would just be reallocating the existing energy that we have.
If I might add, so to answer Director Bender, the Murray contract is fixed, and that is a base load renewable resource that the district has a contract with, and that's fixed. If we need to expand, the district still already has initiatives and guidance to pursue additional resources beyond the Murray procurement contract. That contract will be up for renewal in the coming years, and it may expand or it may be reduced based on what the agreement is with the city of Murray. The district will continually pursue additional baseline renewable resources. This particular fund or this particular rate was designed to address the cost of our current procurement from Murray. Any additional left not subscribed to as 100% green renewable would be allocated to the blended rate. We can't expand the Murray procurement without going into a new contract with them. So the new funds can't expand that procurement from Murray.
So we might just need to regroup here.
We might need to, that's exactly right. I want to create a whole new thing. I don't want a 100% renewable rate, it turns out. I want something more flexible than that we can use specifically in this town for things that we need. We need to address our reliability issues with Nevada Energy. We need to address our, the greenhouse gas emissions of this community, we can do more to help bring those down through things like electrification. And because even with the mix as it stands at 64% renewable, is still a heck of a lot cleaner than, my truck.
So you're not talking about.
So I'm not talking.
You're not talking about a voluntary thing. You're talking about a source of revenue that benefits this entire community, which should be paid for by the entire community, not a select group of people who want something.
That's right.
Well, I think
And so I think, that's where that's where I feel like we're talking about apples and oranges. This renewable, what's being proposed is a voluntary thing, and I'm very clear as to what it's getting. And, it's getting people the ability to say that they subscribe to 100% renewable. It's not moving the needle, I agree. It's a thing. I hate to say it. And, that's why I feel like where you're headed, and I think where I'm hearing the public, that's here tonight headed is, we're talking about community resources and community change. And I don't think that comes from a select group of people wanting to pay more. I think it comes from this district making big community-wide decisions on how to get to some of these goals that the community and you are after. And that costs a lot of money. And that money is not going to be funded by individual programs and voluntary programs. That's going to take a conscious effort by this board, engaging with this community, coming up with solid ideas to get to these goals. And that's not going to be cheap, but I also think that is a community-wide benefit, and it should be borne, those costs should be borne by the community as a whole.
I agree, and those costs will be borne by the community as a whole, but if people have more means and they want to help things go faster, I think we should give them the opportunity to do that too, because I know that equity is a thing. And Deirdre.
Let me say that I'm really happy to be here tonight because what we're hearing about is the Green Rate 1.0 that died of its own weight, 3 or 4 years ago, being recycled again. And I think we've already decided that was not what we wanted. Maybe we shouldn't even call it a green rate. Maybe we should call it a community resilience rate. And maybe we should take those funds and use them for a climate equity fund for people who are not going to be able to afford to do some of the electrification that we would like. We could start a small, low-interest revolving loan fund. I mean, there are all kinds of creative uses that we could make of additional funds from people in the community who are willing to make that commitment and that contribution to the community generally. I would have no objection to that, but I do object to accounting sleight of hand that tells me I'm getting a green rate and all I'm doing is sucking the greener greener and more expensive parts of the portfolio out. That simply does not make sense, even if every other utility in California does that. I don't think we should be doing it.
That's what I feel like. I want to create a whole new thing. I don't want it to be the green rate that is just us shuffling around what we already have, but I do want people in this community to be able to say, hey, I am willing to pay more because I want this whole community to accelerate its decarbonization. And like it or not, the PUD, we are the ones that get to, create electrification initiatives and purchase power and all sorts of things. What we do as a utility is steeped in greenhouse gases. and we, I think, have a responsibility to do everything that we can to start reeling that back in and start. So, I do think that we are in agreement that this rate may not be, we don't want to do this tonight. We need more information. We want staff to come back with programs that may not relate to our power purchase agreements, that may not relate to purchased power, but relate to electrification or, again, equity issues. I didn't think of a low-interest loans, but battery, resilience, reliability, that sort of thing. And what do we call that? And are we allowed to do that? And I think since it's voluntary, we are, but we need to define it. We need to define it clearly and go back to the community and say, hey, if we ask for you to pay 2 cents per kilowatt hour, and that goes into a fund that is going to fund, low-interest loans so people can put solar panels on their house that ordinarily wouldn't be able to afford it, for example. Everybody's getting tired now. So I'm going to say we need more information. We need to talk through more the green rate as it stands right now, just taking on, it would be a rate that we're just shuffling things around and paying for more overhead that we're creating. So it's paying for another layer of bureaucracy as well. So maybe this is not the moment, but we can ask for staff to please come back with programs that are going to help this community reduce its greenhouse gas emissions, period, through the things that we are able to do, like investment in electrification, investment in local resiliency, which includes, distributed energy resources, battery backup, et cetera.
I'm not seeing nods from Kim or Tony yet.
I'm almost ready to make a motion.
Okay, I'm gonna ask before you do, with or without the green rate?
Without the green rate.
Okay. Tony, would you vote for that?
I don't think adopting the green rate tonight or not adopting it really makes
Much of a difference.
much of a
Okay.
difference. So I'm fine either way. I understand the concerns, and I just feel like, there could be benefit to certain members of the community by adopting this green rate who want to do it, but clearly, we've already gone past that.
Right.
And I just, if the board feels it's a good opportunity for people who really want to, and we market it very transparently and very clearly as what they're getting, it's voluntary and they can sign up for it. But, as long as they know what they're getting. So I don't see any harm in adopting it tonight and having a very clear, transparent, message to the community and public outreach to say, this is what you're getting for 2 cents. If you want it, sign up for it. If you don't, you don't. But I think we've moved on already. And to a whole, to clearly we're moving on to a whole next level of issues with where we want this community to go and be. So that's why I'm like, I don't really care. I'll adopt it either way, with or without the green rate, because I feel like if it's marketed and transparently communicated to the public what they're getting, it's voluntary, they can say no. And if they want to say, yeah, I like what that's getting me, I'm going to sign up for it, then they can say yes. I don't think it creates any issues if we adopt it tonight, as long as we roll it out properly. And I don't think it does anything to stop any momentum from us trying to
Continuing
get to
to
that.
do these other things.
Trying to get to that next level, because just my opinion, is a much more expensive discussion. And it's one that needs to be had, because it is very expensive, but we have to look to the future, and we have to understand, what it's going to take to get there. So that's why I keep saying that I feel like I've moved on. The green rate's one thing, it's over here. If people want it, they can have it, but we're going to move on to having more robust discussions about bigger things.
Well, you recommended bringing back another program on this item.
Yeah, I
Didn't
actually
you?
find myself,
Okay, now I'm going to ask Steve. Steve, you mentioned something about the resolution earlier. Can we delete this and just pass the rest of the rate resolution?
Yes, you could adopt the ordinance and as amended by removing this renewable rate option. Okay, so you could remove that if that's the desire of the board and approve the rest of the electric rates, or you could adopt the ordinance as presented, or you could not adopt it. I think staff would not recommend not adopting any of the new rates, because then we would be going back to revisit the budget.
we need to, adopt the rates. And I'm actually now on the fence. I'm like, I'm not above taking money from people who want a badge to get us started. I'm not too proud to do that. It's not what we want and what our ultimate goal is, but it can play a role.
For Joe and Mike is, we can always bring this back, can't we, at the next meeting if you have some kind of information for us?
Yeah, at the board's pleasure, sure.
Yeah, I mean, all we're doing is postponing this item. I am. Aren't I?
Just postpone the green rate?
Optional 100% renewable rate,
Right?
yes.
Yes.
Now, look, I've argued
I don't
myself
know.
into the other direction.
Somebody's going to say something, go.
I make a motion to approve ordinance 2021-03, setting the electric rates, but without including the optional 100% renewable rate for fiscal year 22 and 23. And the ordinance will take effect 30 days from adoption and will be implemented starting on January 1st, 2022.
You want to ask the public?
Again,
Ask the
I think,
public what the opinion is there.
well, I know they're not in support of the green rate as it exists right now. I understand that.
Right.
But
These are the
however,
people that show up for the green
I understand,
energy
and I'm
and climate
extremely
control.
glad they did. And I think I've asked staff for more information and more programs and how we can See, now I'm on the fence. I'm like, because I consider it as a starting point, as somewhere to begin, and start bringing in even a little bit of funding doesn't, even though it's not.
He doesn't know.
I told you, I mean, I'm fine either way, but I want Krista to,
Well, we know what
to
what I
find her-
want.
I know what you want.
Yeah, I think I've been pretty clear tonight what I want.
Look,
It's
Steve's
not what we have in
nervous.
front of us.
Steve's nervous. We have a motion on the table, and
My only comment is that before you take final action, I'd suggest you close the public hearing.
Thanks. Steve.
Okay,
But I didn't want to interrupt you in the middle of a first and
I was
waiting
going to
for a
make that
second.
suggestion after.
I think I have a clear understanding of the public feedback at this time. I can close the public hearing. So now, back to just the five of us.
Do I need to remove it, remotion it?
No, we have a
motion.
Thank you.
We have a motion.
Thank you. Is that okay?
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
You don't have to leave, no.
No,
leave if you want, I get it.
Tony, why aren't you seconding this motion?
Because Tony likes the green weight, and
Like I said, I don't, I
See
don't.
any harm
I
in
don't see any
having it.
harm in it,
Okay.
but, I'm not gonna, if the board's desire is to not engage that rate tonight, I'm fine with that too.
Since I came up and amended the resolution, I'll second that motion.
Okay.
okay.
Now it's second.
And we could still have discussion on it, can't we, Steve?
Yeah.
Yes.
Now it's discussion time.
We can still,
We have a motion and a second, so.
Any
And
discussion?
I guess the other part of it is this is also, we're not, I'm gonna go back to what I said earlier about, we can market it for what it is, and we can market it for what it is now, but it doesn't mean that we can't change what it means in the future. And we can't, say, and we can adopt it tonight. We don't have to launch it. That's another option that we can, but we can have it, adopted, ready to go in, so we don't have to go through all these legal, hurdles to get to a rate. But, I'm okay also just stepping back and saying, crafting what we want it to do. I still think that it's not really going to get us to get where we need to be, but it's a starting point to start having these discussions. So I can see us adopting it, laying it out for the public for what it is right now, and saying if you want it, you can sign up for it, or we can hold off on implementing it and have further discussions with the board and staff as to how we want that money invested.
That's what this,
And so that,
motion's
and then
about.
send a clear marketing message on what that new vision is. It's not just a
Right.
badge,
not just a badge.
now a badge plus this, or now it's not a badge, it's this.
It's this.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't, I don't want to mislead people in any way. But you're right, we're not going to mislead them. I'm looking at this as a starting point. This is not what I want, but it's what we have, and I think we can make it better. Staff understands what we're looking for. That we've given feedback to come back with programs, and we can say, it's not 100% renewable rate, it's going to be this, this, or this, and take the pulse, so that we can take a survey. We've got Promolsky, resources, so that we can engage with the community and have some more in-depth discussions with
The
them.
resolution the way it is?
I think I'm leaning towards that.
Start with,
To start, it's a place to start. It's a start.
I said
And
that
it's not-
earlier, but.
Yeah, you
the
did.
starting point.
You
I
did.
think, Joe, the other, is the idea that we can adopt it, we can direct staff not to
Okay, this
implement it.
motion we can rescind and,
Until
Well,
we
we
get
can,
it
well, we have a
closer to-
motion and a second, we have to vote on it, right, Steve?
yeah. We knock it down.
Let me just address the adopting the ordinance but directing staff not to implement it. If you adopt the ordinance, you have the rate, then we have a rate that the customers can voluntarily sign up for, and we'd be implementing it, okay? You could direct staff, look, we don't want to go out and actively market it. We want
Is
to
that
bring
what this
back
motion?
some more thought and discussion. And if you adopt this rate tonight, and you decide you really don't want this type of a rate, but you want to have a voluntary rate to support
Other programs.
storage or other projects, then you come back with another ordinance, you eliminate this rate, and you adopt a new rate. And you have to be supported by,
Which is less work and most streamlined.
depends on what you want to accomplish.
Either.
Motion down.
I think if anything, we at least need to implement the rates, the current rates,
Absolutely.
without the green rate.
We absolutely
So,
need to implement the rates.
And then not having the green rate in here or coming back at a later time with a green rate where we know where it's going to be marketed, what it's going to support, and not, I understand what you presented tonight. There's certain path that has to happen if we adopt it, what you guys presented tonight. So pulling that back and kind of remolding that into a green rate that would be more supportive of the community, and maybe would be more understanding of what the board is really going to, if we collect the money, where's it going to go, type of thing. So we know where it's going to go right now if we adopt this rate, which is an okay rate. I mean, it's okay to support. It's not great. It is a stepping stone to get to the path where we want to go. But I think if we just pull back the rate and say, it's not that we're dissing it or that we're not going to ever do a green rate. We do want to do it, but in my opinion, I would like to see something a little more robust than not just $50,000, but maybe more robust dollars towards greenhouse gases and addressing that.
Yeah, and I think the only way we're going to get that robustness is with robust signups. Like a lot of people are going to have to say, yeah, you've sold me on this, and I'm really going to get some bang for my buck. So we're still right back to,
So I still stand on my motion.
okay,
Well, yeah, so
Let's vote.
got it.
just,
Vote on the motion.
Okay, vote on the motion. So, and that's the motion to adopt the rate increase, but not the green rate.
Correct.
Okay.
Director Harris.
Yes.
Director Aguirre.
Yes.
Director Bender.
yes.
Vice President Laliotis.
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Thank you.
Nice.
Okay, staff. You got a whole bunch of stuff on your plate now.
Always have a starting point.
We can, yeah,
No, they
this is
actually
true.
have less,
have
because Joe doesn't have
less
to
and more.
implement a rate that no one's really gung-ho about, or somewhat. We have mixed things.
But I think you have understanding
Thank
of
you,
what we
folks.
want.
Thank you for
Okay.
putting up with us
Thank you for coming out.
for dinner. Apologies.
Thank you for
You're
coming
welcome
and
anytime.
helping us talk. Thanks. Wow, okay. Thank you so much, everybody, for your patience with us, but there is a lot to talk about, and this subject is rich. So I look forward to hearing more in the future and continue moving our community forward. Thank you. I have to turn my computer back on. Where am I? Okay, that was the public hearing. We did it. We adopted the rates. Yay. We're going to pay some bills. So on to the consent calendar.
I was going to ask the boys,
The
in
boys
dollars, how
dispersed.
much does that bring up the bill? $5 a month?
10, closer to 10.
8% is closer to 10?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're done talking about this.
Yeah. Okay,
Next.
that's okay. No, you're good.
Okay.
The consent calendar, do we have any public comment on the consent calendar?
No, President Finn.
Thank you. Does anybody on the board want to discuss or pull anything from the consent calendar?
I'll move the consent.
Great. I'll second.
Go ahead.
Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Auto roll.
Director Aguirre.
Yes.
Director Bender.
Yes.
Director Harris.
Yes.
Vice President Laliotis.
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Thank you.
We're going to bang the rest of this meeting out. Action item number 11, maybe.
We have 5 action items.
We have 5
President
action
Finn.
items. Okay, well, starting with the first one, authorizing the general manager to execute a contract to perform rehabilitation of the airport water storage tank. Awarding a contract to DN Tanks to perform rehabilitation of the airport tank in an amount of $348,000 plus a 10% change order allowance for total authorization not to exceed $383,000. Okay, we're ready.
Good evening. This is action item number 11. And we are dealing with rehabilitation of the airport water storage tank. So the airport storage tank is a partially buried pre-stressed concrete tank that was constructed in 1980. Back in the summer of 2010, DN Tanks performed repairs to the dome ring under an emergency declaration. And the dome ring is located where the vertical walls and the roof join together. And it's critical to the structural integrity of the tank. And this work was performed on time with no change orders. In 2010, it was also noted that there was concrete spalling occurring on both the interior and exterior surfaces of the roof structure. However, that was not considered critical at the time and was not included in the emergency scope of work. Since 2010, Water Department staff have applied concrete patches to the roof exterior in an effort to extend the life of the tank with limited success. Based on recent inspections, substantial repairs to the roof are necessary, both inside and outside. And in addition, replacement of the interior steel components, such as the access ladder and overflow structure, are also needed. This rehabilitation work will take about 6 weeks to complete. And during this time, the airport well will be placed out of service, so it won't be available to serve customer needs. And the rehabilitation work requires ambient temperatures above freezing for the most part. And so due to these restrictions, we have a limited window of opportunity, which falls into either the spring transition in April and May, or late September into October as the demands drop off, but the temperatures are still above freezing. And bidding and awarding the contract at this time will allow us to target that April to May window in 2022. So a bid opening was held on November 17th. One bid was received. That was from DN Tanks. The bid price was $348,000, and the bid was responsive to the district's specifications. In terms of fiscal impact, as we just noted, the bid price was $348,000. A 10% change order allowance is recommended. That would be a total authorization of $383,000. Storage tank maintenance and rehabilitation is a component of our 10-year water capital improvement plan. And our approved 2022 budget for the water utility included $949,000 for this activity, and the airport tank was listed as one of the scheduled projects for next year. So the recommendation before you is to authorize the general manager to execute a contract with DN Tanks to perform rehabilitation of the airport water storage tank in an amount of $348,000 plus a 10% change order allowance for a total authorization not to exceed $383,000.
Anybody want to talk about it?
I'll move approval.
We need public input.
Is there any public input on this item?
I'll
No,
second.
President Finn.
Okay, in which case, let's entertain a motion in a second, which I think we got.
Got it.
We'll go ahead and take a roll call vote, please.
Director Aguirre.
Yes.
Director Bender.
Yes.
Director Harris.
Yes.
Vice President Laliotis.
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Thank you.
Moving right along.
Very good. Moving right along. Thank you, Neil, for your presentation. Number 12, consideration of a contract with Fringe Studios, authorizing the general manager to execute a contract with Fringe Studio in the amount of $41,000 plus a 10% change order for an amount not to exceed $44,900 for the design of the eastern office and boardroom remodel. Thank you.
First of all, what's the eastern office?
We're going to chat about that.
I know it's that way.
So, thank you for that introduction. We'll try to make this
Thank you.
pretty quick. This evening in front of the board is a consideration of a contract with Fringe Studio for architectural services. The district's building was completed in the mid to late 1980s. We do have an aging asset with the district's building that we have been working on for quite some time over the last few years. We've listed some of those projects that we have out there. The eastern office would include what used to be the new construction area, so just to the right in the lobby area. And this would also include the boardroom upgrades. We figured it might be time to do a little sprucing up in here, do a little better lighting, a little bit more inclusive work culture in here as well. So we are looking to build offices in the eastern area for the general manager's office, which we've had vacated new construction. They integrated in with customer service. This gives us a cross-departmental operation, an open environment, and a transparent communication throughout the whole bottom story. We're also, in the budget, we've added staff, so this will provide a lot more room upstairs for that additional staff as needed.
Shauna, what area is this? Not the lobby, but the conference room there?
This boardroom,
Huh?
this boardroom, is this
Yeah.
on?
Oh, okay.
And then the eastern area, which used to be new construction.
Okay.
And then we can put more people in there with the reconfiguration. French Studios did complete the lobby project as well as the upstairs. They did do the code analysis on the entire building, so there is a cost savings with their architectural services for the interior remodel. The funding of this project was budgeted and accounted for in the 2022 budget, approved November 3rd, 2021. And the recommendation is authorize the general manager to execute a contract with Fringe Studio in the amount of $41,000 plus a 10% change order for an amount not to exceed $44,900 for the design of the eastern office area in the boardroom.
Great. Thank you very much, Shauna. Do we have any public comment on this item? Quick.
That's remodeling this room,
No
and
matter-
this will be our boardroom.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
It's going to be fun meeting during the
About
remodel.
that when Peter was on the board, and we were gonna change everything around here.
It's time.
Where is the general manager's office going to be moved to, or what the proposal is?
Located on the first story in that eastern area.
Okay, thank you.
And then that has a connectivity through the back end of the warehouse area with all the crews. They could go in the back door and the front door and then closer to the public as well.
So the general manager can escape out the back door
Lots of different
without being
exits.
seen.
Wait a minute, you
We
said
understand.
the office is gonna be at the back door, you said?
It'll be over here actually
Okay,
in the
that's
front, but
fine.
there is
Yes.
a good flow.
I knew it's coming
In
down to the
exchange for
first
that, he'll
floor.
have to greet every customer that comes in.
I'll move staff's recommendation.
Second? Oh,
I've got a quick
okay,
question.
go ahead.
Does the 44,000 is only for the design of it, or does it also include all the new carpet and all the new materials and everything?
For the design and the construction plans.
And how much is budgeted for the design and construction of it? Do you know what we budgeted?
I have that number offhand.
Okay. And I know I'm putting you on the spot, so sorry if it's fine if you're like, I don't know, I'll look into that. But this whole building has been through many remodels. Do we have like a running total of the costs that we have put into the rehabilitation of it? And just, I don't know if anybody, that's just a thought that came up, so,
We're building.
okay.
There's a couple of things we could bring back to the board at a later time, that running total. In terms of the budget for the actual construction, there is an approved budget for the remodel of the exterior and some interior components. Staff will come back once we have recommendation plans and construction documents. We'll come back to the board with an item with that budgetary recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
Right on, thank you. I heard a motion in a second.
Yeah.
Okay,
Who was the second?
Quora.
Oh,
Of that.
okay.
Public comment?
I asked for public
Did.
comment, and I didn't, yeah, I didn't
Okay.
get any.
Shocking.
Yeah. Only hear one. Anyhow, could we get a roll call vote, please?
Thank you. Director Quora.
Yes.
Director Bender.
Yes.
Director Harris.
Yes.
Vice President Laliotis.
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yay. Thank you very much. All right. Item number 13, election of board officers. The board nominate and elect a president and vice president for the next 12 months. So I don't believe that we get a presentation on this. We get to do this all by
usually
ourselves.
provide you a really quick one, which, of course, in December of each year, the board elects officers, a president and vice president to serve for the next 12 months. I have a listing on the screen right now since 2010 who has served in those capacities.
Okay, thank you.
There, of course, is no fiscal impact associated with this item, and now I will turn it over to the board to nominate and elect a president and vice president for the next 12 months.
Very good. Thank you, Shauna. I'm going to nominate Tony Leotis for president.
We said we were just gonna move up, right?
It's a thing, that being said, I am,
I appreciate that. I've thought about it quite a bit the last couple of weeks, and I have a lot of personal things going on, and I'm really not feeling like I can represent this board as president next year. So I apologize. I have a lot of things going on. So,
well, I will go ahead and say that I've, at this moment in time, that my professional burden is pretty light.
Pretty what?
Light.
Yours?
Mine, I have everything is under control weirdly right now in my life. So I am available to serve in whatever capacity.
You don't mind if I nominate you as president?
I do not mind. That's,
Good,
I guess that's what, yeah.
good. A nomination is made for president, Madam Secretary.
I'll second that nomination.
Dang.
Bang.
Do
Bender.
you want a vice president too?
Should we do it all at once?
You can do it separately and all at once, whatever your choice is.
Okay, I'd like to nominate Jeff Bender as the vice president.
I'll second that nomination.
Okay,
Sorry, Jeff.
There it is.
there it is. Can we get a
I
roll
don't
call
want
vote,
it.
please?
Thank you. Roll call vote, Director Aguirre,
Yes.
Director Bender.
Yes.
Director Harris,
I'm going to abstain.
Vice President Laliotis.
Yes.
And President Finn.
Yes.
And just, I want to reiterate something that I want to probably say it Friday night, but I also want to, or Saturday night, but I also want to say it here in that I really appreciate Krista's leadership, her goals, her ethics, her desire to serve this board and this community. This past year as president of this board, you should be proud of your accomplishments, and you have my respect, and you have my support, and I welcome you being president for another year.
You've done well.
Thank you, Director Laliotis. That's, thank you very much. And it's an honor to be here, honestly. It's an honor to serve. So I appreciate that. I feel like I'm awful clamped. Okay.
Here. Here.
I know, right? Give me. So you were well prepared up here. Thank you. Okay, well, good. That was relatively,
Now that moves it up to the financial,
well, now we get to move to our
committee too.
schedule.
President,
Not quite. We'll get that as soon as we're done with this meeting.
Okay. No, but that's the way it goes.
So we've made it all the way to item number 14, consideration of the board meeting schedule for 2022. So we get to set the schedule.
Yep, so the board
Let's-
sets the
let's see what we
schedule
got.
for the next year's board meetings. Of course, this can be changed or modified as needed. Staff is estimating that one board meeting a month with a quarterly workshop would get us through 2020. So the board schedule is looking like a second board meeting in February, May, August, and November for workshops. Again, it can be modified at the board's discretion. There's no fiscal impact associated with this item, and staff's recommendation is to approve the 2022 meeting schedule. I will note two things on this. Neither one of these cross over with any school calendar for Ski Skate Week. Our May 4th meeting does interact with the league's council conference though. So Steve would not be able to make our May 4th meeting.
Okay. And I'm already, so we can add meetings if we feel it's necessary at a given time. This is not set in stone, it's approving as it is, because I can already see we need a meeting to discuss our renewable, not renewable rate. But that being said, right, that's what I was thinking. If we already have a workshop scheduled for that, or if that's an open workshop that we get to fill in that blank. Okay, that's my only comment. Is there any public comment on this item?
No, President.
Thank you. Any other board comments on this item?
No.
In which case, do we have a motion on this item?
Yes, we do. I'll move approval of the 2022 board meeting schedule.
I'll second.
Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Director Aguirre?
Yes.
Director Bender?
Yes.
Director Harris?
Yes.
Vice President Liliotis?
Yes.
President Finn?
Yes.
Thank you.
Excellent. Moving right along to item number 15, consideration of fiscal year 2022 annual contract and procurements. So this is to authorize the routine annual procurements totaling $8,227,428. That's very specific. For the vendors listed in attachments 1, 2, and 3, and to authorize the general manager to execute the required documents necessary to procure the products and services listed as attachments in the staff report. Thank you. You're up.
Thank you, President Finn. The staff presents routine annual procurements to the board for approval before the fiscal year begins, which is not too far away. We try to ensure compliance with district procurement policy, and this adds efficiency and reduces costs by making things more efficient for routine purchases. These items are greater than $15,000, and which all items over that amount require board approval. The types of annual procurements in this are sole source, competitive procurements, procured by other government agencies, multi-year procurements, and other procurements. Attachment 1 is sole source procurements, and that total is being revised in this presentation from what was in your packets, down by $100,000. There was one item that was listed twice in error, so that total is $2,385,000, not $2,485,000 as presented in attachment 1 in your packets. I apologize for that. We caught that the other day. Attachment 2 had two types, other government agency procurements, 5 vendors for a total of $173,830, and then extending multi-year contracts 1 year for 13 vendors for a total of $2.8 million. Attachment 3 had 3 types of items listed, $2,190,000, 15 vendors for lowest responsive competitive bid procurements, $425,000 for the most qualified for traffic control services, And then a third category called professional services, a new RFP process, unique qualifications, includes 4 vendors for a total of $120,000, and those items are listed in attachment 3, those specific vendors. These items are included in the budget in specific line items, so this is a formality to help, as mentioned earlier, expedite the process for approval for routine purchases, relatively routine. So the revised total is down $100,000 from what was in your staff reports due to that revision to attachment 1. And so the recommendation this evening is to authorize routine annual procurements totaling $8,127,428 from the vendors listed in the attachments 1, 2, and 3 as adjusted attachment 1. And then secondly, authorize the general manager to execute the required documents necessary to procure the products and services listed in attachments 1, 2, and 3. Thank you. Any questions from the board? Or public?
Thank you, Mike. First public comment.
Thank you for the report, that's great. And it's a
No public
routine-
comment.
It's a routine thing.
Thank you, Mike. Any board questions, comments?
I do have a question. What is Vistage Private Public Adventure?
Yes, I believe that was on attachment 3. General Manager Wright, would you like to?
This is a membership and some potential professional services, but it's predominantly a membership for professional and leadership development for both the general manager and the leadership team. It would fall under the procurement, under the general manager's contract for memberships and opportunities for professional development of the general manager or the betterment of the district. And so that's what that membership will entail.
And this is the first time that this vendor has been brought to the board?
This is the first time that the district has engaged or will potentially engage in a contract with this firm, yes.
Okay. Is there a reason why it's in the annual procurements and it's not coming as a separate item, as like a, a separate action item that, to the board, where I'm just looking at transparency here. What is included in this contract, that kind of thing. So I'm just curious why, I think this is the first time it has shown up. And typically what I've seen for the procedures is that if a new vendor comes up, all the other ones, pretty much I recognize, or they've had previous presentations to the board. Just curious why it hasn't come as an action item.
The board in the past has expressed to the staff a desire for procurements that the staff is aware of in the coming budget year to bring those before the board in a lump annual procurement authorization. If it's the board's direction to bring any of these items outlined here this evening back for a separate presentation, staff will definitely schedule those in the interest of kind of efficiency and timeliness for the 2022 calendar year. Staff is bringing all these items as a bulk authorization.
And is there an existing contract right now that you have for the $25,000, or is that just an estimate for the costs?
It's not a contract, it's a membership. So there will be no contract. It's just a procurement, a membership procurement. The district can choose to, or the staff can choose to end that membership at any time needed. But it's the general managers would encourage the board to authorize this procurement because it provides opportunities for both the general manager and the leadership team to engage in professional growth and development.
Which I'm always very supportive of. So thank you very much for your understanding of my questions.
Thank you. Are there any other board questions or comments? No?
I'll move staff's recommendation on this item, number 15.
Second, the motion,
Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Thank you, Director Aguero,
yes.
Director Bender,
Yes.
Director Harris,
Yes.
Vice President Laliotis.
Yes.
President Finn.
Yes.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. That brings us to items 16 and 17, routine business. approve the treasurer's report and fund balances for the month ended September 30th, 2021, and disbursements for the month of October 2021. Do I need to take public comment on our routine business here?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
and there is none.
I've done it a million times. Any board, anything, anybody has a comment or question on our,
Joe, would you like to pay the
I move
bills?
that we approve the treasurer's report. And also, you want me to pay the bills?
I think so.
All in one, baby.
All in
All
one.
in one, you got it. Move to pay the bills since they're already paid.
Perfect.
Oh, sorry, I didn't say that, did I?
I'll second that.
And we can take a vote.
Director Aguirre?
Yes.
Director Bender?
Yes.
Director Harris?
Yes.
Vice President Waliotis?
Yes.
President Finn?
Yes.
Thank you.
Which brings us all the way to item number 17, approve the minutes of November 3rd, 2021. Any public comment on the minutes?
No, Madam President.
Thank you. And fellow board members, any
wasn't
comments or
here.
questions about the minutes? Concerns? Okay.
I wasn't here that day.
You were not. It was a
And
lean
Tony wasn't
meeting.
either.
Nope.
I'll move the minutes of November 3rd, 2021.
I'll second that.
Director Aguirre?
Yes.
Director Bender?
Yes.
Director Harris?
Yes.
Vice President Waliotis?
I read them.
Yes.
President Finn?
They look good.
Yes. Okay, that brings us to the end of our routine business. And from here, we will be moving into closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1, existing litigation, Nevada County Superior Court, case number TCU 21-7920.
Madam President, if I may request that maybe we can hold this in abeyance and go to the Finance Corps,
Oh, I forgot about the
and
Finance
then come
Corp.
back to this meeting to go into closed session.
That sounds like a great idea because that's totally slipped my,
There's more?
yeah, where, it's not on my, going all the way to the end. Okay, so let's do that. Let's hold that in abeyance. Everybody keep that in your thoughts, and let's open our finance.
Going into recess. Recess.
Yeah, we're going to go into recess.
Where is that? Okay. I don't have anything in front of me about the Finance Corp, so I am, at the
At the
moment.
end of the
a C.
packet. It might be at the end of your packet.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. There we go. All right. So, boom. We're going to call it to order. It's not 6 PM. It's 8:37. On Wednesday, December 1st, this is our Finance Corporation meeting. I officially call it to order. Can we get a roll call real quick?
Director Aguirre?
Yes.
Director
here.
Bender?
Yes.
Director
Here.
Harris?
Here.
Vice President Waliotis?
Here.
President Finn?
What I
Here.
meant to say was, yes, I'm here.
Thank goodness. We're all still here. We're going to defer the pledge. Do we have any changes to this agenda? That would be Brian.
No, President Finn, we do not.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment on this item?
No, Madam President.
Thank you very, very much. So let's see, business item, elect a president and vice president who are serving on the Truckee, Donner Public Utility Districts as offices for the TDPUD Finance Corporation.
Okay, now, the nomination is now in force?
That's what we usually do, isn't it? We just.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
nominate Krista Finn as president, Jeff Bender as vice president of the Finance Corporation.
I'll second that if I have to.
Thank you. Director Aguirre?
Yes.
Director Bender?
Yes.
Director Harris?
Yes.
Vice President Waliotis?
Yes.
President Finn?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, this meeting is adjourned. Let's go back. Like that, short and sweet.